piped up, he's popped his head above the parapet and done this interview, the vast majority of which was completely uninteresting to me. Ben has got such a generic Essex geezer personality. I feel like I've heard everything he has to say a million times over from a million other people. But there was a part of the interview where he said that he wants to move on from the Chris Eubank Jr. fight and instead target world titles at 147. That was refreshing to hear. Unfortunately, his promoter Eddie Hearn isn't on the same page. He's still, even now, stuck on this Chris Eubank Jr. fight, whereas Conor Benn has ostensibly turned a leaf, and I think that's a good thing. Terence Crawford has moved up to 154. There are several belt holders at 147 now. Conor Benn needs to be maneuvering himself into a position to challenge one of them. Obviously, that's contingent on sorting his situation out with the British board in UCAD. Yes, he had several fights overseas over the past couple years, but you may or may not know that, for example, the Florida Commission, who allowed him to have one of his bouts, asked the British Boxing Board of Control whether Conor Benn was banned in the UK at that time. The British board said no, and that's the reason the Florida Commission allowed that bout to proceed. Presumably, if the British Boxing Board of Control had said yes, he is serving a ban, they wouldn't have allowed that fight to proceed. So there is some type of cooperation between the British board and other commissions in at least some other countries around the world. But if Conor Benn can get all that stuff sorted out with the board and with UCAD and get back fighting again, then that's what I want to see him do. Target the champions at 147, and that's what he says he's going to do. Says he wants to get back to knocking people out, therefore he's targeting welterweights. He did mention the likes of Virgil Ortiz and Terence Crawford and how they failed to knock their most recent opponents out at super welterweight, and he insinuated that's why he failed to knock his most recent opponents out, because they were essentially super welterweights as well, although there's a world of difference in class between Israel Madrimov, Serhij Boachuk, and the guys Conor Benn's been fighting recently. Massive difference in class. A lot of people are of the view that Conor Benn's lack of knockouts recently is down to a lack of PEDs in his system, whereas he believes it's down to the size of the opponents. We will see. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below. Did you watch the interview? If so, what did you make of it? Were you glad to hear Conor Benn talk about moving past the Eubank Jr. fight and instead concentrating on challenging for world titles at welterweight? Do you think Eddie Hearn's actually gonna help him in this regard? Or do you think he's gonna steer him away from that path and try getting back on the Eubank Jr. path? Let me know in the comments.